Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something massive happening in India's economy, a total overhaul of its labor laws. And believe me, this isn't just some minor legal update. We're talking about a change that's going to reshape how literally hundreds of millions of people work.
So, you might be asking, why such a massive change? I mean, why would India take 29 different labor laws, some of them nearly a century old, and just replace them? Well, to really get a handle on the solution, we've got to first understand the problem.
Okay, the simple answer is India's old labor system was basically a museum piece. A lot of these laws were written before India was even independent. They were designed for a totally different era, a world of factories and traditional jobs. That's a far cry from the digital gig economy-driven world we live in today.
And this tangle of old rules, it wasn't just confusing, it was actively holding the country back. Imagine trying to run a business while juggling 29 different laws, a lot of them actually contradicting each other. It was a nightmare for compliance. And even worse, all the new kinds of workers, like in the gig economy, they had practically zero protection under this old system.
So what do you do with a century's worth of legal knots? Well, you don't waste time trying to untie them one by one, you just cut right through the whole thing. And that's exactly what the government did. The solution was a pretty radical simplification. A total reset.
Yeah, this huge project is actually part of a much bigger national initiative. The idea is to modernize India's entire labor ecosystem, to make it more competitive and self-reliant in the global economy.
So the government took all 29 of those complicated, often overlapping central laws
And consolidated them, boiled them all down into just 4 simple, streamlined codes. I mean, just think about that for a second. From 29 down to 4. That is a huge simplification. And here they are, the Code on Wages, Industrial Relations, Social Security, and Occupational Safety. These 4 codes are now the whole shebang. They cover everything. This is basically the new foundation for all labor laws in India. All right, so what does all this mean for the average person, for the everyday worker? Let's break down some of the most important before and after changes that are going to affect pretty much everyone.
Okay, this first one is a really big deal. Before this, tons of workers had no formal proof they even had a job. But now, an appointment letter is mandatory for all workers. That one piece of paper is huge. It's your proof of employment, it gives you job security, and it creates a formal work history.
This is another absolute game changer. Social Security in the past. It was kind of a patchwork system. It covered some people, but not others. Now, things like retirement funds and health insurance are being extended to all workers. And the really crucial part? This now includes all those gig and platform workers. We're talking millions of people who were basically left out in the cold before.
And then there's wages. It used to be that a minimum wage only applied to certain jobs in certain industries. Well, not anymore. Now, it is a legal right for every single worker to get paid a minimum wage. It's about creating a real financial safety net, no matter what sector you work in.
Okay, so we've seen the big picture. But how do these massive changes actually affect specific groups of people on the ground? Let's zoom in a bit and see what this could mean for you.
This is huge for anyone in the gig economy. For the first time ever, gig work is actually defined in Indian law. That's a massive step, and it means aggregators, the platforms, have to contribute to a social security fund for their workers. And maybe best of all, these benefits are portable. That means they follow you from state to state, job to job.
The new codes also take aim at some really old barriers for women in the workplace. For example, they can now work night shifts, as long as there are safety measures and they consent. Equal pay for equal work is now legally guaranteed, and they can work in all sectors, even places like mining that were previously off limits. It's all about creating more equal opportunities across the board.
And what if you're young, just starting your career? Well, these codes are all about giving you a solid foundation. You've got that guaranteed minimum wage, the mandatory appointment letter to build your employment history, and stronger protections from exploitation. It all adds up to a much safer and fairer way to enter the workforce.
So let's pull back again. What's the ultimate goal here? What is the grand vision behind this whole reform?
Really, it comes down to this. The goal is to create a modern system that works for both workers and businesses. It's about creating a workforce that's protected, sure, but also productive. The idea is to create an environment that actually encourages employment and drives real, sustainable growth for the country.
And that quote right there about portability, that is so important. In a country like India, where tons of people move for work, making sure their social security benefits can move with them is a massive deal. It helps knit together a single, more flexible labor market for the whole nation.
So, the big question remains, will these codes really redefine the future of work in India? By cleaning up a really complicated past to try and protect a rapidly changing future, this reform is definitely one of the boldest attempts to answer that question. Only time will tell, but one thing is for sure, the groundwork for a whole new era has been laid.